Chosen one, listen closely. Something shifted the moment you clicked this video. They finally see it now. You were never ordinary, and that's why nothing they tried worked. Every setup failed. Every plan backfired. Not because you fought back, but because God was already ahead of them. While they thought they were outsmarting you, God completely outplayed them. What you went through wasn't delay, it was positioning. What felt like loss was actually protection. And now, the realization has hit them all at once. You can't be blocked, copied, or stopped. This isn't luck. This is divine timing. And if this message found you today, understand this clearly. You're standing at the edge of a breakthrough they never expected you to reach. Before you go deeper, lock this energy in. Like this video, comment, "Thank you God for choosing me," and subscribe to the channel. This isn't just support, it's alignment. When you act with intention, the door opens faster. The moment they realized you were different. For a long time, people around you genuinely believed you were just like everyone else. They thought you could be delayed, ignored, or underestimated without any real consequence. They assumed your quiet nature meant weakness, that your patience meant fear, and that your silence meant you had nothing powerful going on inside. From the outside, it looked like you were standing still while others moved ahead. Some even felt comfortable dismissing you, speaking over you, or deciding your limits for you. But what they didn't realize was that something deeper was happening beneath the surface. You weren't stuck, you were being shaped. You weren't falling behind, you were being protected. And recently, something shifted so clearly that even they felt it before they could put words to it. You didn't announce your growth. You didn't post about it. You didn't demand respect or recognition. Yet suddenly, your energy changed. When you entered a room, it felt different. Your presence became calmer, heavier, more stable. You spoke less, but your words carried more weight. You reacted less, but your decisions became sharper. That's when confusion started on their side. They couldn't figure out what changed, only that something had. It was uncomfortable for them because growth without noise is hard to track. And real power doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply becomes undeniable. What they were watching on the outside was only a surface version of you. While they were focused on appearances, God was working deeply within you. Your character was being strengthened. Your discernment was being sharpened. Your emotional reactions were being replaced with clarity. Situations that once drained you no longer had the same effect. You learned when to walk away, when to stay quiet, and when to trust timing instead of force. None of this happened overnight. It came through disappointment, isolation, and moments when you questioned why things felt so slow. But every delay was intentional. Every pause had purpose. They mistook your restraint for weakness. They thought if you weren't reacting, you weren't capable. But restraint takes more strength than reaction. Silence takes more control than confrontation. You were learning how to stand without needing validation, how to move without approval, and how to trust yourself without outside confirmation. That kind of inner stability doesn't come from confidence. It comes from alignment, and alignment changes everything. Now they realize something too late. You were never ordinary. You weren't surviving by luck. You were being guided. What they assumed was passivity was preparation. What they called invisibility was protection. You weren't losing ground. You were gaining depth. And depth lasts longer than attention. They now understand they weren't dealing with someone normal, predictable, or easy to define. They were dealing with someone chosen, someone quietly built for more, someone whose strength didn't need an announcement, and someone whose rise was never meant to be rushed. Every trap was already neutralized. There is something they struggle to admit, even to themselves. Nothing they planned against you actually worked. They tried in different ways, some obvious, some subtle. Delays, confusion, mixed signals, discouraging words, silent resistance. They thought if they slowed you down enough, you would lose confidence. If they distracted you long enough, you would doubt your direction. If they applied enough pressure, you would eventually give up. But none of it unfolded the way they expected. Not because you were always strong, and not because you had all the answers, but because God was already ahead of every move. Some seasons felt painfully slow. Doors didn't open when you thought they should. Progress seemed blocked just when you were ready to move forward. At the time, it felt like loss or rejection. But those delays didn't destroy you. They protected you. They kept you from walking into spaces where your energy would have been drained or your purpose reduced. God was never postponing your life. He was redirecting it. What looked like being stuck was actually being spared. Then there were betrayals that cut deep. People you trusted revealed intentions you never expected. Support vanished. Loyalty shifted. And for a moment, it felt like the ground under you gave way. But even those moments didn't break you. Instead, they opened your eyes. God allowed certain truths to surface so you wouldn't keep carrying people who were never meant to go with you into the next season. What felt like abandonment was actually separation for your protection. The pain had a purpose, to lighten your load before the journey ahead. There were also losses that seemed unfair. Time, energy, opportunities. You gave more than you received. It felt like you were pouring into things that never returned anything back to you. But those losses didn't empty you. They taught you discernment. They showed you where your value truly belonged. You learned how to give without losing yourself and how to walk away without guilt. That wisdom didn't come easily, but it became one of your greatest strengths. While they thought they were setting traps, God was quietly removing obstacles. Every confusion redirected you. Every disappointment refined you. Every closed door saved you from the wrong outcome. You weren't being pushed back. You were being moved into alignment. What they saw as you falling behind was actually God clearing the path ahead, step by step, without you even realizing it at the time. Now, looking back, the picture is clearer. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Every attempt to stop you failed because it was never in their control to begin with. God was guiding the process long before anyone else understood it. And that's why you're still standing, wiser, lighter, and more focused than ever. Your silence became your power. There was a phase in your life when you felt the need to explain everything. You explained your intentions so people wouldn't misunderstand you. You defended your choices so others wouldn't judge you unfairly. You tried to show your heart so people could see that you meant well. You believed that if people truly understood you, things would become easier. But over time, you learned a quiet truth. Not everyone is confused. Some people understand perfectly and still choose to misinterpret. That realization slowly changed you. Without making a big decision or announcement, you began to speak less. Not because you had nothing to say, but because you finally understood where your words were being wasted. You stopped over-talking. You stopped trying to prove your worth. You stopped reacting to every comment, every look, every situation. This wasn't emotional shutdown. It was emotional maturity. You realize that constant explanation drains energy, and growth requires conserving it. That silence unsettled them. People who were used to having access to your thoughts, your reactions, and your emotions suddenly found the door closed. They could no longer predict you. They could no longer pull responses out of you. And when someone can't read you, they start to feel uncomfortable. Your calm created confusion because it didn't match the version of you they had memorized. You didn't argue back. You didn't chase understanding. You didn't correct every wrong assumption. You simply kept moving. When someone stops explaining and starts living in alignment, it sends a powerful signal. It shows self-trust. It shows clarity. It shows inner stability. You weren't moving out of ego. You were moving out of peace. And peace is unsettling to people who rely on chaos, drama, or control to feel secure. They expected reactions. They got stillness. They expected emotional availability. They met boundaries. Your calm spoke louder than any explanation ever could. It showed that you no longer needed external validation to stay centered. You trusted your own discernment. You trusted timing. You trusted that what's meant to be understood will be understood without force. That's when they realized something important. They no longer had access to your energy. And access is everything. When people lose access, they lose influence. When they lose influence, they lose control. That's when fear quietly replaced confidence on their side. Not fear of you, but fear of not being able to move you anymore. Your silence wasn't emptiness. It wasn't avoidance. It was strength settling in. It was clarity, choosing peace over noise. And in that silence, you didn't lose your voice. You found your power.
God turned your pain into positioning. There were moments when the pain felt pointless. Nights when you lay awake wondering why things had to be so hard for so long. You questioned why your efforts seemed unseen, why your prayers felt unanswered, and why your path looked heavier than others. But the truth is this: you didn't suffer for nothing. Every tear carried meaning. Every lonely season was shaping something deeper inside you. God wasn't watching your pain from a distance. He was using it to position you for what you could not yet see. Through those difficult seasons, endurance was being built quietly. You learned how to keep going even when motivation disappeared. You learned how to stand when support was absent. Strength stopped being something you talked about and became something you lived. That kind of endurance can't be taught. It's formed through experience. And now, you carry it naturally. You don't panic the way you once did. You don't collapse under pressure. You've been trained by life itself. At the same time, discernment was developing within you. Pain sharpened your awareness. You started noticing patterns, intentions, and energy more clearly. You learned the difference between people who walk with you and people who simply walk near you. You stopped giving unlimited access to everyone. Boundaries formed, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You learned where to say no, where to step back, and where to protect your peace. That clarity is part of your positioning. There's a reason certain blessings didn't arrive earlier. If they had, they might have overwhelmed you, distracted you, or pulled you away from your purpose. You might have lost yourself trying to manage what you weren't yet ready to hold. God's timing wasn't denial, it was preparation. Now, you can receive without panic. You can handle growth without losing balance. You can hold responsibility without resentment. That's not luck, that's readiness. This is why this season feels different. You're no longer desperate for outcomes. You're no longer rushing timelines. You're no longer chasing validation. There's a steadiness in you now, a calm confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. You trust the process because you've survived the pressure. You trust God because you've seen how He carried you through what should have broken you. God didn't just plan your elevation, He prepared you for it. And that preparation shows. Others can sense it in the way you move, the way you decide, the way you wait. You're not anxious anymore. You're aligned. You're not forcing doors. You're ready for the ones that open naturally. The backfire is what exposed the truth. There was a moment when everything shifted on their side. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was undeniable. They looked at you expecting to see damage, confusion, weakness, hesitation. They thought after everything that happened, you would be exhausted, broken, or at least slowed down. Instead, they saw you still standing, still focused, still moving forward with quiet determination. That's when panic set in, because the outcome didn't match their expectations. They expected collapse. They expected regret. They expected you to lose direction. But what they saw instead was clarity. Your mind was clearer, your steps were steadier, your energy wasn't scattered anymore. That contrast unsettled them. It forced them to confront a truth they had been avoiding. Whatever they tried to use against you didn't work. In fact, it did the opposite. What was meant to harm you ended up revealing your protection. Every situation that was supposed to weaken you showed your resilience instead. Every attempt to create doubt ended up strengthening your trust. The pressure they applied didn't crush you, it refined you. And refinement changes how someone carries themselves. You didn't come out louder or aggressive, you came out grounded. That's a level of strength they weren't prepared to face. That backfire exposed something deeper. It showed that you were never alone in this process. God wasn't just observing, He was actively involved. While they were focused on outcomes, God was focused on positioning. He didn't just block what was meant to hurt you. He used it to lift you beyond the reach of the very things that tried to stop you. That kind of elevation isn't visible at first, but its effects are undeniable. Now they understand something that shifts the entire dynamic. You cannot be easily touched anymore. Not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. You've developed a stability that can't be shaken by opinions or interference. You're no longer operating from fear or reaction. You're operating from alignment, and alignment makes someone untouchable in ways force never can. This realization is heavier than any argument or confrontation could ever be. There's nothing to debate, nothing to accuse, nothing to prove. The evidence is in your movement, your peace, your progress. When God elevates someone, He doesn't always announce it. He demonstrates it. And that's exactly what's happening now. You were being hidden, not ignored. There were long seasons when it honestly felt like you were invisible. You watched others move ahead while you stayed in the same place. You saw doors open for people who seemed less prepared, while yours remained firmly shut. Your efforts felt unnoticed. Your intentions went unrecognized. At times, it felt personal, like life was skipping over you. But what you're starting to understand now is this powerful truth. You weren't ignored, you were hidden. Being hidden doesn't feel good when you're inside it. It feels like delay. It feels like being left out. It feels like wondering if your time will ever come. But God often hides what He values until it's ready to stand on its own. He was protecting you from being exposed too early, before you had the strength, wisdom, and boundaries to protect what was meant for you. If certain opportunities had come when you were still trying to please everyone or prove yourself, they might have pulled you off course. During that hidden season, your character was being refined quietly. You learned how to work without applause. You learned how to stay consistent without encouragement. You learned how to separate your worth from outside validation. Noise was removed so your inner voice could become clearer. Ego was softened so humility could grow. Distractions were stripped away so focus could settle in. None of this was wasted time. It was essential preparation. While others were being seen, you were being strengthened. While others were gaining attention, you were gaining depth. Depth lasts longer than visibility. Attention fades, but alignment remains. God was teaching you how to stand firm, even when no one was watching. That kind of stability cannot be rushed, and it cannot be faked. Now that the time is right, what was hidden is starting to surface naturally. Not through force, not through self-promotion, not through loud announcements. It's unfolding quietly, almost effortlessly. Things are lining up, people are noticing, opportunities are appearing at the right pace, and it feels sudden to those who weren't aware of your journey. But to your soul, it feels familiar. You've been preparing for this moment longer than you realize. What's emerging now isn't new, it's revealed. And because it was built in the quiet, it can stand in the open without losing its grounding. This victory is internal before it's external. At first glance, it may not look like a victory to the outside world. There may not be loud celebrations, public recognition, or obvious rewards yet. But the truth is, the most important win has already happened inside you. This journey was never only about money, status, or success. Those things can come and go. What God worked on first was your inner world, because without inner stability, outer success doesn't last. One of the biggest signs of this internal victory is how fear no longer controls you the way it once did. Situations that used to overwhelm you don't shake you as deeply now. You still feel emotions, but they no longer run your decisions. You've learned how to pause, breathe, and respond instead of react. That emotional control didn't come from avoiding life. It came from facing it. Fear lost its grip because you walked through it instead of running from it. Doubt also speaks differently now. It hasn't completely disappeared, but it no longer dominates your mind. You don't spiral the way you used to. You don't second-guess every step. When uncertainty shows up, it doesn't stop you, it simply reminds you to stay aware. You've learned how to move forward even when everything isn't perfectly clear. That's growth, that's maturity. Another quiet shift happened in your trust. You began listening to your intuition more. You started recognizing when something felt right or wrong without needing approval from everyone else. You learned to trust God's timing instead of forcing outcomes. Waiting no longer feels like punishment. It feels like alignment. You understand now that delays can be protection and that rushing can cause harm. That understanding brings peace. This inner peace is the foundation for everything that's coming next. Without it, success would feel empty or stressful. With it, you can receive blessings without fear of losing yourself. External overflow follows internal alignment. That's how it works. God didn't outplay them by giving you revenge or dramatic payback. He did it by giving you clarity, peace, and direction, things no one can take from you. And because this victory happened inside first, what comes next will last. You don't need to respond. Life will. There was a time when you felt the need to respond to everything. To explain your side, clear your name, and correct every misunderstanding before it turned into something bigger. Silence used to feel risky. Like if you didn't speak up, the story would be written for you. But you're in a different season now. You don't need to respond the way you once did, because life itself is already responding on your behalf. Right now, explanations are unnecessary. Not because people suddenly became fair, but because truth has a way of surfacing without being pushed. When God moves, He doesn't require constant commentary. The evidence shows up naturally through outcomes, consistency, and growth. Your progress is doing the talking, your peace is doing the explaining, and your direction is doing the convincing. You don't need closure conversations anymore. Those often reopen wounds instead of healing them. Closure doesn't come from being understood by everyone. It comes from understanding yourself and accepting what happened without needing validation. You've already moved past the version of yourself that needed agreement to feel settled. Now, you're grounded in your own clarity. People will begin to connect the dots on their own. Some will quietly realize they underestimated you. They won't always apologize, but their behavior will change. Some will step back because they no longer feel comfortable around your growth. Others will suddenly treat you with respect they never offered before. Let those shifts happen naturally. You don't need to manage them or react to them. Your role now is simple but powerful. Stay clean in intention and steady in action. Keep moving with integrity. Keep making decisions that align with who you've become. Avoid being pulled into unnecessary explanations or emotional back and forth. Focus on what's in front of you. Life has a way of placing everyone where they belong without your involvement. When you stop responding out of fear and start living out of alignment, everything settles into place. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to announce your growth. Reality is already doing that for you. This is only the beginning, not the peak. It's important for you to understand this clearly and deeply. What's happening in your life right now is not the finish line. It's not the peak. It's not the moment where everything is finally done. What you're experiencing is the beginning of a new level, the opening chapter of something larger that's still unfolding. If this feels different from past wins, that's because it is. This time, it's stable. This time, it's real. Up to now, you've survived, learned, and grown. From here on, you begin to build. And with building comes more responsibility. Not pressure, not chaos, but responsibility that matches your maturity. You're being trusted with more because you've proven you can handle it without losing yourself. God doesn't place weight on shoulders that aren't ready, and the fact that this season feels calm instead of overwhelming is proof of your readiness. Along with responsibility, more clarity will come. You won't feel as lost or unsure as before. Decisions will start to feel cleaner. Confusion will fade faster. You'll recognize what aligns with you and what doesn't without long inner battles. That clarity is a gift. It saves time, energy, and emotional wear. You're no longer learning through chaos, you're learning through awareness. Opportunities will also begin to align, but not in a rushed or dramatic way. They'll come naturally, often through unexpected paths. You won't need to chase as hard or prove as much. Things will meet you where you are because you've reached the level where alignment attracts instead of effort exhausting. And the most surprising part? Alongside growth, there will be peace. Not the kind that avoids challenges, but the kind that stays steady even when challenges appear. God didn't bring you this far to abandon the work He started in you. Every delay, every lesson, every closed door was part of preparation. You weren't being tested to see if you'd fail. You were being trained to see if you'd grow. And you did. That's why you can carry what's coming next with wisdom instead of ego, and confidence instead of fear. Your role now is simple, but powerful. Stay grounded in who you are. Stay grateful for how far you've come, and stay aligned with what feels true and right. Don't rush the process. Don't compare timelines. Trust the unfolding. They may have just realized you're not ordinary, but God has known it all along. And this is only the beginning. Before you continue, anchor this moment. Like this video, comment, "Thank you God for choosing me," and subscribe to the channel. This isn't routine, it's intention, and intention activates alignment.